Hello. Today is Friday, December 12th. Welcome to Simply Trade Cindy's version. I'm Cindy Allen, CEO of TradeForce Multiplier, a global trade consultancy. This Cindy's version is where I base an international trade update on a Taylor Swift song. This podcast is brought to you in association with Global Training Center. Today's song is Delicate. Why, might you ask? Because everything's kind of delicate right now. We'll get into that in a moment. But first, what happened in this week in trade? There were a couple of really good articles. There isn't a lot happening in trade this week to report on, but there were a lot of really good articles that I think give an overall view of what's going on in trade. The Wall Street Journal Logistics report did talk about a pullback on manufacturing orders. And we kind of anticipated this because there was a huge buildup of products right before the tariffs took place. So stocks were full, and definitely there was a little bit more ordering in anticipation for Christmas. However, we do know that manufacturing orders are down. It also talked about the China trade statistics. China to the rest of the world actually showed up at 1 trillion with an output of up to 7%, which does show that China manufacturing is not being impacted as big as manufacturing here in the U.S. U.S. container imports are also down 5.4% from November to October, and down 7.8% from last year. So we are seeing, again, the supporting data showing that trade overall is down, at least into the U.S. We do know that there has been some continued high levels of trade, China to the rest of the world, EU to Asia. Trade is strong both ways. So we are seeing the economies are kind of going around the U.S. Another thing, confidence among small U.S. businesses is actually up slightly, and that's really good news for small businesses. We think that this is due to Black Friday sales, shop locally on Saturday sales, Cyber Monday sales. So overall, small businesses are feeling positive, and hopefully that will continue. The one big announcement in trade that we did see is there's a new 301 case against Nicaragua that is set to take place in 2027. So we have some time. It's not an immediate action. And that has been under some review for months. Not a lot of trade with Nicaragua, but hopefully we'll be able to see some positive movement in that. The one thing I did want to talk about today was a report by the Cato Institute, which is admittedly a partisan group that does put out information. But I thought the data that they actually reviewed was very good. And that's why I chose the song Reputation off of the Reputation album, Delicate, because of this phrase, we can't make any promises, can we, baby? But you can make me a drink. I think we all kind of need a drink at this point, Christmas, Hanukkah celebrations. But from the trade, it's been a really rough year, and it's been a very delicate time for importers and exporters. The other reason I chose the song Delicate, and I'll get into the Cato Institute report in a moment, is the court case that's going on at the Supreme Court, as well as the other cases that are being filed. I mentioned last week that Costco is one of the first major retailers to actually come on and file an action in the Court of International Trade. And basically that is to ensure that Customs doesn't take any actions against the companies, the importers that file these actions. And it preserves their right to have a refund if the Supreme Court decides that way. It also ensures that those participants would be able to get a refund because they are filing a court suit. If you remember, one of the outcomes of the 301 case that went to the Supreme Court showed that if you did not file an injunction, you were not entitled to a refund, which was one of the reasons why a lot of lawyers are advising that importers should file for refunds to protect or file an injunction with the Court of International Trade to protect their right to a refund should that be decided in that manner. Many companies are expressing some concern about filing that court action after some of the reporting that we saw in Costco, which was not positive in all instances regarding that filing, and that many companies are in a delicate position. They want to ensure that they have the right to get a refund. However, they have a reputational risk in filing for a refund. So it's a very delicate situation for importers right now. And again, like I mentioned last week, do consult with your own customs attorney. That's very important that you talk through all of those risks in filing or not filing. Now on to the Cato Institute. They had a couple of charts in there, and if you haven't seen it, I would recommend pulling it up, regardless of your political affiliation. It had some good information in it if you just focus on the data. Based on actual trade over the last 12 months, actual duty rate was 8.8%, which is much higher than the 3.1 or 2.3 that it had been for years going up to this administration. They believe now, and there's a very interesting chart that shows the ups and downs of the tariff rates, which went as high as 30% on average, and that would have been right in the first part of April. The estimated rate now, they believe, is 17.3%. So quite a bit higher than the 2.3% we've had for years in the what I call the free trade or fair and balanced trade approach that we've been under in the last 10 years or so. And the difference, I think, between the 8.8% and the 17.3 is the pre-tariff imports that I spoke about, where you had a lot of manufacturing, a lot of importers bringing in goods in advance of the tariff. So it isn't a true representation of the actual trade that we believe happens on a day-to-day basis. And that's why the average is a little bit lower than what we believe the estimate to be now. And we also saw an impact with the various trade deals. UK, the drawdown from China, the agreement to pause those really high duty rates. The EU, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia have all lowered slightly that 17.3% duty rate. The report also has two other very important points. One, it talks a lot about the complexity of tariff application, not just from the number of actions that we've seen, the stacking tariffs, so that added a different complexity that is different for every different type of duty, and every new trade deal has something different that it is actually outlines whether it's stacking or not stacking, 232, 301, the IEEPA. Also, the derivative tariffs, which are new, that are assessed at the component level, add a complexity. The elimination of de minimis, where companies didn't have to have that detailed information to determine what was actually the duty rate and how it applied, especially if you have a derivative product. And they did say that the overall estimated cost to be in the billions of dollars, which I thought was extremely interesting, especially at this time. And we know this. If you're a trade practitioner, you actually are experiencing this on a day-to-day basis. That's why every time I go on LinkedIn, there's a huge list of jobs in the trade industry. People reaching out to me, hey, do you know anyone? We are looking for someone in-house. We're looking for someone at a customs broker. We're expanding our staff because of the complexities of these tariffs. And many of them, if you're at a customs broker, are forward-facing to the clients to help them go through the different duty rates and understand how their products are impacted. The other third thing I thought was really important in this article was the uncertainty. That has a dollar value all on its own. It is the impacts to planning overall, financially. How can companies financially plan when they aren't really sure what the duty rate is going to be? We've seen some of that settle down. There hasn't been a lot of new duty rates, but we have a lot of 232 investigations that are out there that have not yet either concluded the investigation or been assessed. We don't know IEEPA. Is the IEEPA going to go away? Are they going to get refunds? Are they not going to get refunds? What will take IEEPA's place if that is found to be unlawful? The administration has signaled that they will be taking other actions if IEEPA is found to be not lawful to be applied. So we have a really hard time understanding what that is going to look like from a financial perspective. Also, ordering inputs. How much do you order? What's your manufacturing plan? What is that going to look like? If you don't know the costs coming into that, it's really hard to plan how much product you need to produce. Also, we're seeing some indicators that, the economy may be slowing down. So people aren't buying as much in the U.S. right now, and they want to make sure that they aren't overproducing goods and ensuing costs for not only production but also storage and keeping that product on the books from a financial perspective. So the uncertainty has a cost in and of itself, in that companies are having a hard time planning, and I think we are seeing some caution. That's definitely shown in the trade statistics going down. We have shown some caution in ordering. So, and once the ordering leveled off after pre-tariff actions, we're seeing, trade going down. And I think that will continue through the new year. So it's delicate right now. It's delicate for those trying to do next year's planning, end of year wrap-ups, things like that. We aren't quite sure. But I do know, we can't make any promises, can we, baby? But you can make me a drink, and I think I need to go have one now. We'll see you next week.